Thank you, Ernie. Folks, we moved into our new office in Girard a few years ago, and as you left the boardroom and went to the break room, which the directors always liked to do because it was about lunchtime, there was a great painting on the wall. It was one of those kind of paintings that always catch my attention. It was a vista. Looking into the vista, you could see across the plain, and you could see the mountains beyond. And the caption at the bottom of the picture said, "Vision, the ability to look from where you are to where you want to be." I remember stopping at that picture and thinking at the time, I was fairly new as a board member at that time, and I thought, what kind of vision is required to run an electric co-op? They don't have to seek new members. If they're running a little low on the money, all they have to do is put in a request for raising the prices. That was a little naive of me at the time, because since I've been there for the remaining few years, I began to see that vision truly is required to run and manage an electric co-op and to keep the power on, which is what we all want. So with that little introduction, I'd like to give you some good news about what we've done this year at Heartland Electric Co-op. One of the new items that I particularly like is online bill pay. For those of you who do not have computers, this probably won't be too exciting. If you have a computer, however, you can simply go to Heartland REC on the computer, and you can scroll over to the left side and click Bill Pay, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to know about paying your bill. And you can say, well, when did I pay my last bill? Well, it's right there. What about the last 8 or 10 bills? And those are all there also. What about the capital credits that you have already earned? That's there also. So for me, that's an exciting new addition to our program. We also had a big deal this year because we received a hazard mitigation grant that allows us to do an enormous project in upgrading Heartland's service. I'm hoping that perhaps Dale will talk a little bit more about that later. It truly is a big deal. We also discovered that we were actually able to measure an improvement in our service. Another new addition this year was we had added to our fleet the ability to track exactly where our trucks were at all time, which gives us the ability to more properly tell which truck might go to an outage or where we need them without some of the old hang-ups that we had. Another item that is really new this year, and our man Ron is in charge of Efficiency Kansas. I hope you've heard of it. If you read the our last newsletter, The Heartbeat, you'll see a nice story in there about how that works. We also have a new office in Gas City and a new facility. And of course, we paid back capital credits this year. We're very proud of that. Something very new that we just okayed at the last board meeting was peak time rebates. Rebates are a big deal to a lot of people. Here's the way we hope it works. We're going to be looking for volunteers to take part in this program, and if you then, when the peak period comes, there's about 8 or 10 days every year when our suppliers check to see how much power we're using. And if we use too much, they take the advantage, the opportunity then to raise our price. Those are some of the new things. There's also a few more that I have not mentioned. There's also some bad news. Hopefully not too bad. You remember the old Merle Haggard song? A haunting song. He says, "Mama never really had the things she wanted, even though my daddy really tried." Well, some of the things we wanted, one of the things we desperately wanted in the distribution of electricity was an energy policy from our Congress, for heaven's sakes. We still don't have it. Another thing that we don't like to see and hear is that the water levels in our lakes are going down, which causes our supplier not to be able to get a lot of that cheap hydroelectric power to let us keep our rates low. We also have not increased our meter count. Our meter count is down. We don't like that. Of course, the big news that you all know about and we all tremble over is thinking about the terrible disaster in Japan and what that may mean for future use of nuclear power in the United States. The last word we had was that the plans have been tabled for all of the new plants that were being proposed. And now, I want you to think about the word apathy. The middle of that word, apathy, comes from the Greek word pathos, which means a lack of feeling or caring. Pathos means a level of caring. Apathy means that you don't care at all. Did you know, I'm sure some of you do, but did you know that there are schools for fast-talking salespeople? At those schools, they teach you how to better communicate and how to ask the right questions. One of the demonstrations they use is called the Indian card trick, and that's where, if you can imagine, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, pick a card, and there's 52 cards in the deck, and you happen to pick a card, and I'm saying, now don't tell me what it is. They go on to say, if you will answer me just either yes or no, I can tell you very quickly which card you picked. So you're already saying, good grief, is he going to ask me 52 questions? Well, what I'm going to ask you then is, you realize that there are 4 suits in a deck of cards. 2 are black and 2 are red. Is the card you picked red? If you say no, then I say, well, that leaves black, doesn't it? So I've immediately cut my choices down to half. Now I do the same thing for hearts. If it's black, it's either hearts or spades. I cut it again. Here's the point of what I'm telling you. I thought I needed to teach that to some of my grandchildren. But I've got this, this young grandchild that the minute I start on it, she looks at me and she says, "Grandpa, I don't want to play this game. I don't want to play this game, Grandpa." In the school, on teaching you how to become a fast-talking salesman, they make a big point out of that. They say there's a couple of things that will absolutely guarantee that you're not going to make a sale today. One of them is they don't have the money, and the other one is they just don't give a dang. The reason I'm asking you to remember the word apathy is because it really bothers all of us in our lives today. We're sitting by and watching things happen that shouldn't happen. We're sitting by and passing up a chance to help and do something about it. Without boring you with all the opportunities, let me just say, Doug Shepard's here this evening, and he's going to be presenting you and me with an opportunity to do something when the time comes, and I ask you to pay attention to him. In the meantime, I thought, if I can get my glasses on so you can hear me, I thought I would add just a tiny bit of levity to this. This one struck me as really cute. A guy was talking about a folk hero, and I'm sure you've all heard of Willie Nelson. Anyway, this guy writes a story about what would Willie do. And he said, well, long ago he came to us. And his words were simple, but they went right through us. And the whole world sang along, but then they didn't want to hear his songs, and he was gone, and we thought we'd lost him. But he grew his hair and he moved to Austin, and all the people smiled, and they came to hear him sing for miles like a miracle. All those rednecks and hippies from New York City came down to Mississippi. They stood together and they drank a brew, and when it's all gone wrong, what would Willie do? You know, sometimes I wonder when I ain't getting nowhere, what would old Willie do when it all gets too much to bear? And I can see him now on his lonely old tour bus, and he's got his problems just like any of us. Well, he'd just take a deep breath, and then he'd let it go, and he'd take another deep breath and let it go, and then he'd take another deep breath and he'd hold it. And I'd bet he'd feel hungry in a way that seems strange. Like the time he passed out in his own bedroom, and his wife sewed him up in sheets and beat him with a broom, and he forgave her. And you think that's enough? Well, then the IRS came and they took away all of his stuff. And they took his golf course and his recording studio. And he just went out and did another show. So when it's all coming down, you better ask yourself, what would old Willie do? Folks, thank you very much. I'm very glad you came.